Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Seconds. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland, this is for you.
What's going on, Cavs fans? Welcome to another edition of The Block, The Shot, The Stop, a Blue Wire podcast covering the, what are we now, 47-10 Cleveland Cavaliers.
Right. That's
Woo!
right.
Before we get into today's episode, I just want to put out there that next Sunday, a week from now, we're going to be doing a live show at Southern Tier Brewing. It'll be a pregame show. We got tons of fun stuff planned. Live Q&A, door prizes, and just so much more. So if you're in the Cleveland area or going to the game, come out and support. You know, it's a free event. Come drink some beer, talk some Cavs, and love to meet everybody.
For sure. No, we'd love to see you all. Southern Tier is a fantastic place. I've heard they have the best wings in downtown Cleveland. Well, we'll find out in a week. But yeah, no, we'd love to meet anybody that's going to the game or just has some free time Sunday. Come on out and hang out with us.
Absolutely. So jumping into this one, Kevin, we face the second best team in the West in the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies are a really good team this year. They have a lot of pieces, a lot of they have a lot of quality depth as well in a lot of their guys. Obviously, they're headlined by Ja Morant, who we didn't get to see a lot of last year. So coming back this year, still averaging 20 a game, and just really physical tonight. I mean, even though the skirmish that seems to happen every time that Donovan Mitchell plays the Grizzlies, outside of that, like a really physical game.
It definitely was. I thought it was interesting that there were a lot of Cavs that usually don't show a lot of emotion that seemed a little bit on tilt at times during this game, in particular in the third quarter. Like when Evan Mobley and Sam Merrill are like getting visibly upset and screaming and stuff. I mean, I don't remember seeing either of those guys scream all year. So definitely a super physical game, a frustrating game at times, but a game where the Cavs, for a lot of it, played really well and beat, one of the better teams in the league.
It's gotta, I mean, we mentioned this before we got on. It's gotta be the officiating getting under these guys' skin. You had a great point, and I'll let you say it, but holy cow, I heard more whistles than like sneaker squeaking.
Yeah. So it was the lack of consistency, I think, is what really throws players and coaches off. And what we were talking about before is like the refs didn't screw the Cavs, the refs didn't screw the Grizzlies in this game. They just kind of screwed up the quality of the game by not having control of it, not being consistent. So, in the end, it's kind of a wash, but I thought what was a phenomenal game probably could have been a little bit better if the refs had control, especially after that skirmish between Bane and Donovan in the third quarter. That's a time where the really good officials will take control of the game to make sure it kind of curbs it right there. And it kind of kept escalating. There kept being several incidents after that until, the game kind of tightened up in the latter half of the fourth quarter. But yeah, a little bit disappointing for that regard, but in the end, it was still a super enjoyable game to watch. And a game where, old head NBA fans, if they say the game's not physical nowadays, I miss the 80s and 90s, like the game tonight was a perfect blend of old school physical NBA basketball with like the incredibly high level of skill that pretty much every guy has in the NBA nowadays.
Absolutely. And then just like the added level of emotion onto everything, which I think that's another thing that people really miss about those 80s and 90s era, is the high level of emotion. I mean, we had 6 techs tonight. Both coaches had tech, and then 2 offsetting techs on each team. Shout out to Tristan Thompson. 0 minutes played, 1 technical foul.
Is that a trillion? Is that a trillion? Somebody get Mark Titus on the line. Find out if that's a trillion or not.
Oh my God. Sometimes you gotta have that. You just gotta have the dog that's like, I mean nothing to this team on court, so I could bark at everybody.
So something else. Yeah, he threw himself right in the middle of that mix. But to Tristan's credit, like if there's one Cav you want in the middle of that mix, kind of keeping people away from the other guys and keeping the other guys from getting suspended, it would be Tristan Thompson. So
absolutely
Tristan, like a lot of the Cavs, did his job tonight.
Absolutely. Talking about doing your job, man. Kenny Atkinson gave Ty Jerome. He said, "Ty, go win this game." I mean, holy cow, man! 25. No, that's Evan Mobley. Sorry. 26 points off the bench. I mean, he was a man on fire there. The late third, early fourth quarter. Really, the guy that created the distance for us to win this game.
For sure. And we'll get into the game in a second. Right now, this moment, we flirted with this idea. We're starting a Ty Jerome for 6 Man of the Year campaign because this guy, while he doesn't have maybe the eye-popping stats that a couple other people have, he has affected winning on the winningest team in the NBA more than any bench player in the NBA this year. And nobody on the Cavs thought he was going to be the most important bench guy this year. But we give a pretty good job of giving Ty his flowers and everything. But like, I think we need to we as in Cavs Nation need to start like letting the NBA know that Ty Jerome is the best bench, is the 6 Man of the Year in the NBA this year. Like no one has had an overall effect in winning. And you talked a little bit about his numbers. So I cherry picked a little bit. I looked at his breakdowns because his numbers for the year, it's still like 11.5 a game or something. Like, why is it so low? December, he was under 7 points a game. Every other month, he's at 12 or more. He has shooting numbers that have to be some of the best for any bench player in the NBA. 52% field goal, 44% 3 points. Like, he barely turns the ball over for a point guard, averages 4 assists a game. And this is, and how much better would his stats be if he wasn't backing up 2 all-star guards, right? I mean, this guy deserves everything he deserves a contract he's going to get in the offseason, and he deserves getting some consideration at the very least for 6th Man of the Year.
I mean, it was even more than, yes, everything that you said, but like tonight, like what system, what coach, what player, what 6 man is getting the opportunity to really be the difference maker and close out a really tight game against a really good team in a situation where you need to keep pace and keep winning to keep your lead late in the season so you get your number 1 seed. I mean, it's all Kenny and Ty. Ty obviously earned that respect and that opportunity. But even with Kenny, man, I mean, Ty Jerome had no business being out there because it was an all defensive lineup. It was DeAndre Hunter, Max Strus, Isaac Okoro, and Evan Mobley. Those were the guys. That was the squad he had out there with them. All bigs, all defense, all length. And Ty Jerome still just said, "Nah, I'm taking this. I'm hitting these threes. I'm the man on fire, and I'm clawing out defensive rebounds with Jaren Jackson Jr." I mean, such good for Kenny to go with a high hand, say analytics be damned. Like, this is the guy I'm putting the faith in, and Ty Jerome to be the guy that can stand up and show that he's the reason. Like, it's a good bet to put your faith in Ty Jerome.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, with Garland being out tonight, and we hope it's a very short-term issue and everything. I don't know about you, but I guess like me and like a lot of Cavs fans, you're like, we need a big game out of Ty Jerome tonight. Like, who would have thought they'd been saying that coming into the season? Like, we need a big game out of Ty Jerome to win The winningest team in the NBA is saying that. So I think that really emphasizes the importance of Ty Jerome. And you kind of alluded to it, not only the shooting, which obviously was fantastic. I think he had 18 of his 26 in the second half. But digging out 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, only 1 turnover against one of the best defensive teams in the league. Absolutely phenomenal performance by Ty in a series of phenomenal, run for him. I think I was looking at his game log, like the last 20 games, and I think he's in double digits now, 17 of the last 20.
Damn.
So yeah, he's just he is phenomenal, and he keeps raising the bar and then exceeding expectations.
I don't know if you've gotten a chance to watch Bob's video from Fear the Fro, but he kind of ran down what teams could even make Ty Jerome a competitive offer next season.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very many. Like, it's the Cavs who have some sort of bird rights, not bird rights, but they have some sort of, like, they can match and situations like that. But there's not a lot of teams that either A, can afford for a Ty Jerome, or B, have a need for Ty Jerome. They already have, plenty of depth and quality depth in their in their guard department. So that makes you feel really good.
The thing is, the Cavs are going into the second apron this summer no matter what. So like, you can sign Ty Jerome knowing, you're already hitting the maximum benchmark in the salary thing. He will cost you, extra money because, dollars over the second apron are taxed, and, but I could care less about Dan Gilbert's money. I mean, this is a guy.
I don't think Dan Gilbert cares.
I will give him his money, bring him back on like a 3-year deal, and let him kind of do exactly what he's doing this year. But hey, like, we'll talk about all that. I definitely want to start with Ty Jerome, and I'm glad we did. And we'll get into a couple other individual players, but what I want to talk about, I thought the biggest key in the game tonight was the rebounding. Cavs out rebounds the Grizzlies 71-50 with 22 offensive rebounds. For reference, they averaged 10.5 a game. Then, and it shows up, the biggest place it shows up is in field goal attempts. They had 99 field goal attempts. They usually have about 89 or 90. So they have 10 extra field goal attempts, and they had 7 or 8 more than the Grizzlies. And how do you do that? You either win the turnover battle, which they didn't. They actually had 1 more turnover than the Grizzlies, or you win the rebounding battle. And they just absolutely dominated one of the most physical teams, one of the most big and athletic teams in the NBA. And obviously a lot of it is Mobley and Allen. They were phenomenal about controlling the paint, combined for 23 rebounds, but you had a lot of guys getting in there and digging out rebounds. Like you talked about, Max Strus with 8, like Isaac Okoro with 4 in 19 minutes, Dean Wade with 6 in 17 minutes, DeAndre Hunter, who we'll talk about as well, with 8 rebounds. I am so encouraged with DeAndre Hunter, not that we should have been when we traded for him, but that he is playing the role that the Cavs need and doing a couple of things. A couple of things he didn't really do in Atlanta. Like, he had 12 points tonight without hitting a 3. My guess is he might not have had 12 points all year where he didn't hit a 3 with Atlanta. He actually, he was low cold from there, found other ways to contribute, got to the free throw line 4 times, had a really nice back cut for a lab. And then on top of it, he's really digging in and playing defense. I forgot he was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year in college. I think he has been an above average, but not elite defender in the NBA. I think he's prioritizing being an elite defender right now with this Cavs team. And I just super encouraged from what I've seen from him. But I threw a lot at you. Where do you want to,
I'll start with DeAndre Hunter, man. I mean, Look, this guy, first off, I think a lot of the question marks or concerns around DeAndre really were just Atlanta specific. Like, he really is a good scorer. I said this with on one of the episodes with Tim. Like, he really is a good scorer in the sense of, like, he's a 3 level. He can score from anywhere. He can create his own shot. And a lot of that comes from getting the ball more than just at the final second. Like, I have to chuck something up because Trae Young held onto the ball the entire time. So that's encouraging in that sense. And then they said in one of the broadcasts a couple of days ago that, you know, he feels better about his defense because he's got 2 bigs behind him. He knows that, like, he's got backup and protection behind him, which allows him to press a little harder, do a little, like, be a little more assertive in the defensive role. So I think a lot of the questions about the play are definitely just being in Atlanta, of strictly offense. They don't even know what defense is team.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'll get back to the DeAndre Hunter, but I just want to answer Adrian's question about how is Pritchard better than Jerome for 6th man of the year. Peyton Pritchard's having a very good year, but my answer would be name recognition, and he plays for the defending champions. Like, Ty Jerome in NBA circles is a relative unknown, to be honest, and he plays for a smaller market team that even though the Cavs are now, you know, obviously getting more national attention and everything. So I think that's what it is. And I do think as we come down the stretch of this season and people are kind of looking at you know, the full year of a player's production and the team they were on, a lot of time these awards go to the guys who are on the most successful teams. And Ty is having a great year on one of the most successful regular season teams in the NBA. And so I think for sure he'll get votes and end up in the top 5. I don't know if he'll win it, you know, because of that name recognition piece and because his kind of traditional stats aren't quite what some other guys are. But
yeah. I mean, the other thing is that award specifically really seems to go to guys that have been on one team for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
The 6th man of the year doesn't really go to a journeyman, somebody that's been, you know, 4 teams in 5 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, and Peyton Pritchard's been on Boston and more than at least this year. I mean, was he 3 years now?
Yeah. No, at least 3. It might be more. I think he might be in like season 4 or 5.
Yeah. I mean, so you think about that, like, those votes usually get skewed based on how long the longevity of somebody's tenure. Same thing with, like, I don't want to, you know, poo-poo on Pritchardson, who's having a great year, or, you know, when Tyler Hero won it, because Tyler Hero had a great year and is having a great year this year. But guys that just kind of stick to the same team, the same system for a long period of time. And that's just my observation with particularly 6th man of the year.
I think that's a astute observation, and I know we're jumping around like crazy, but I wanted to
so much to talk about.
Yeah, we'll finish out with DeAndre Hunter, and I think we're kind of alluding to this, but like a lot of people didn't want the Cavs to make a trade at the deadline because they didn't want to break up the chemistry of the team, both, you know, on the court, off the court, and everything. He's fitting into this team perfectly. I mean, a couple guys he got traded for were fitting in perfectly too, but frankly, has a higher skill level and higher ceiling than them. So yeah, just because you change something doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be worse as far as like chemistry and everything goes. And so I'm like super encouraged by that. All right, we're like 18 minutes in here, and we haven't talked about Evan Mobley or Donovan Mitchell really yet. So I'm gonna pivot to Evan tonight. I think this is up there for best all-around games Evan has had this season. He was phenomenal defensively. He had 3 blocks and I think altered 5 more shots at least at the rim. And then he has 25 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists on 50% shooting. Really, the only thing he did wrong was he was really cold from 3 tonight. But otherwise, like, I thought Evan is a fantastic player and you know, has lots of good games, but just impacting the game from every which way. I think this is one of his better ones of the year.
Defensive player of the year, Evan Mobley. I mean, He's going up against Jaren Jackson Jr. is currently the front runner and on every betting platform for defensive player in the year. I mean, you listed off. He had a double-double, near triple-double tonight, where Jaren Jackson Jr., don't get me wrong, still impacted the game, 22 points, but 3 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block, where 3 blocks for Evan Mobley. I mean, it felt like Evan Mobley had a bigger defensive presence in this game, especially going one-on-one against Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah, he was all over the place. Defensively, offensively, he was running point on the fast break several times. He made himself available like on the block and had some great pump fakes and dunks and getting to the rim, and was just really, really just phenomenal. And you mentioned Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of the other guys who's supposed to be young big men coming up to be best players in the NBA. It's great to see Evan go up against kind of a peer in that regard and then outplay him. Jaren Jackson ended up having decent numbers because he had a really good fourth quarter, and the fourth quarter was important. They came back in the fourth, so I'm not taking anything away from this game from him, but I thought Evan clearly outplayed him.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I'm curious where it'll move the line for betting favorites for defensive player in the year, but I don't know how you look at that performance and don't give it to him, or don't at least move the line a little closer to Evan Mobley.
I of all the NBA awards, other than the clutch award, I won't get started on that, but like defensive player of the year drives me the most insane because it just goes to the big man who wins the block title a lot of times. And like, I think so many of the most impactful defenders in the league are actually wing defenders that don't have defensive statistics, but that can slow down the best players in the NBA. Like I think of Jalen Williams on OKC. I think, and Lou Dort. I think those are two of the most impactful defensive players in the NBA. And not saying Evan's not, but like just the fact that those guys don't even get to be in the running just because they're not a big man. Like the defensive player of the year award just always drives me insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think me and Tim talked about that too. How I don't know whose podcast it was, but there's some athlete, and they're like, they should do like 2 defensive player of the years, one for guards, one for bigs, or something, or maybe like a position of the year. So a guard of the year, shooting guard, like something.
Yeah. It's just, it's like the MVP in the NFL with quarterbacks. Like, I mean, if you bet on anyone other than a quarterback, you're just donating money to whatever gambling site that you choose to partake in. So
pretty much.
Yeah. And I just think that's boring. I think I think it's kind of like lazy on the voters, honestly. If you can't like break down guys' defensive impacts from whatever position they're playing, I think, I don't know. Just anyway, so frustrating thing. All that's to say, Evan Mobley is still one of the most impactful defenders in the league. And I think part of the reason he should be considered one of the best defensive players, it's not the blocks and everything. It's the fact that he's a 7-footer that can go out and guard wings and use his length to his advantage. Like those defensive matches where he doesn't end up with a statistic, but he forces someone into taking a tough shot. Like, whereas most 7-footers can't keep up with these like guards and wings and get kind of crossed up and everything. I think that's what separates him as a defensive player versus other big men in the NBA.
Well, yeah, I think the biggest thing that should be looked at when looking for a defensive player of the year or anything like that is, how do offenses change when that person's on the floor? Like, what does the opposing offense change whenever Evan Mobley's on the floor versus, pick a player? Right. Like the scheming and, at the play for everything changes when Evan Mobley's on the floor, because the other offense is saying, well, we can't drive to the hole on him because he will swat that out of here. He is a perimeter defender, decent perimeter defender as well. We have to pick somebody else to attack because, like, just let him play off ball.
Yeah. And the versatility, not only the high level of defensive ability in with also offering so much versatility on the defensive end. I think that is why I like Evan as much as like anybody for Defensive Player of the Year. The impact he makes on the defensive end, because he can do so much well, like whatever you need him to do that night. So yeah, and all that's to say, like kind of focusing back in on tonight, he was just so phenomenal controlling both ends of the court. Like I said, he didn't hit threes. Other than that, he played about as good of a game as he could have.
Absolutely. Speaking about playing games, Jared Allen's Iron Man for this year is still intact. Yeah, he was kind of a game time decision coming up into this game after leaving the last game with a hand injury. They kind of mentioned that it was all going to be precautionary because the game against the Knicks was an absolute blowout. So there's no need to take any risk. So super glad that he was able to get in here today. Still has played every single game this year. I want him to finish with 82. Like that would be great. Nobody does that anymore. Finish 82, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, Jared, not obviously the durability that you discussed, but also just the fact that he gives you whatever you need to win that night. And there's so many guys on that team. We talked about Ty Jerome is like that. There's games where they need Ty Jerome to come in and just go crazy for 16 minutes, relieving Garland and Mitchell, and hit a couple threes and stuff. Jared Allen, there's games where where the Cavs need him to score a lot more. There's games where they really need him to just focus on defensively or have a huge game on the rebounds, or some kind of mix of all of it. And not only that, but like the thing the Cavs need, they need him to be available, because with only two kind of big guys that you want to play on the roster, like if Jared Allen was a guy who missed 10 to 20 games of the year, I don't know how this roster construction works, right? Like, they would have to play small so much. I almost think they would have to change the roster and get an extra big guy if it wasn't for Jared Allen's, durability. And there's a lot of NBA guys that if they messed up their finger or dislocated it, whatever he did, are taking the next game off. And kudos to Jarrett for coming out and not only playing, but having another really solid game tonight.
Absolutely. And then I guess we can close out this game with talking about, Donovan Mitchell. Oh, sure. Before we do, everybody minutes wise, 35 and under. Evan Mobley had 36. So still super low minutes, which is phenomenal. But
yeah, I was curious because like Donovan Mitchell played a lot in the first half, and granted he was going off, but I think he played like 18 minutes, like I don't know, probably 20 minutes in the first half, and then they backed off his minutes in the second half. But yeah, Donovan, like this is kind of been a theme at times this year in that he takes control of one half when he needs to, when things aren't going well, right? And a lot of things were going well in the first half for the Cavs, except that they weren't hitting any outside shots. They didn't. No one hit a 3-pointer besides Donovan Mitchell the entire first half until Strus hit one at the buzzer of the first half, and so he just took on a lot of the scoring. I know he had at least 22 in the first half. It might have been more. And not only scoring, but playmaking. He was phenomenal. I mean, they had nobody that could stay in front of him.
None. The stat at the break was Donovan Mitchell was 3 of 6 from 3-point, and the rest of the team was 1 for 20. So like that's how bad the 3-point shooting was in that first half of this game.
Yeah, and he cooled off a little bit in the second half. He also he cooled off aggressiveness too, as frankly Ty Jerome especially was kind of taking over the offensive reins there in the second half. But still, like Donovan was really good tonight, scoring, facilitating, and you knew he had to be with Darius Garland being out.
Yeah, and yeah, that was. I didn't know who they were going to slot into that starting rotation spot with Darius Garland out. turned out to be Isaac Okoro tonight, who still got his 19 minutes in. Not too much. I mean, he never has the counting stats, but he's just such an aggressive player on the defensive end, and they bring him in, especially in the fourth quarter there when the game was getting kind of close. Bring him in for the defense. So it's cool to see him get the starting opportunity and still be able to contribute in some sense of this game.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I did not put it in my notes, but I did want to talk about it. I thought it was a very interesting decision to have Okoro start, but as I thought about it, I think this year Kenny has used kind of like someone being out. There being an open spot in the starting lineup to insert a guy that kind of either needs to get in a better rhythm or needs to get his confidence up. Or like at one part of the season, that was Dean Wade was really struggling, and they got him in that starting lineup role for a while. Strus was kind of in and out of it, especially as he was kind of trying to get his rhythm back after he first came back. I know he's put Sam Merrill into the starting lineup. Sam's probably started at least 3 or 4 games this year when, you thought it'd be somebody else. But like, if you didn't know better, you thought it'd been a no-brainer. Ty Jerome's going to start tonight. He's the other point guard in Darius Garland's place. But I think like Kenny actually thinks about the psychology of the team and thinks like, Isaac's just coming back. He's really rusty. He's working through the shoulder. Let me get him out there with, it's not the big 4 tonight, but the big 3 that we're playing, and see if you can get him a couple easy looks, get him a couple buckets and kind of help him find his rhythm again. I don't, I'm not inside the coach's room or anything, but like, to me, that's what it seems like Kenny and the coaching staff are doing with these guys when there is an opening in the starting lineup due to somebody missing a game. And I think it was a really good move because for the Cavs to be at their absolute best, I truly think Isaac Okoro is going to need to be a contributor in the playoffs because of his elite defensive ability.
Yeah, I did not expect Okoro or Ty Jerome, honestly. I expected kind of Mitchell at the 1, Strus at the 2, put DeAndre Hunter at the 3, and then have your 4 or 5. But yeah, I think this is why Kenny is the coach of the year, is because he's so methodical about not just the game plan or who's in the lineup, but a lot of the psychology of like, all right, this guy's having a hard time getting in rhythm. Let me put him in with the other horses and let him run. So
yep. Yeah, and I don't know who the 5th starter with the big 4 is ultimately going to be. I also don't know that it totally matters if everyone's healthy and you can just play the matchups as you need to. But there are a lot of advanced statistics that still say Isaac Okoro is the best 5th guy to go with the big 4 in these lineups, both from a defensive and an offensive perspective. It's really him and Dean Wade, and then there's a huge drop off to anybody else being that 5th starter from an advanced statistics perspective. So all that's to say, we're super happy to have Isaac back, have the team whole, minus Garland tonight. And like, God, to see this whole team with their 10, 11 man rotation, Friday night, what they did to the Knicks, and then tonight having everyone but Garland. And it's phenomenal to watch a team that has such high quality depth is very rare to see in the NBA.
I mean, we said it the other night at the Knicks, like that was a scary win for the rest of the league. Like the fact that they dismembered them, that was the first game of the whole team. And you could tell that Tibbs was throwing out a bunch of different things. All right, we're going to beat them on defense. Nope, can't do that. We're going to try to outpace them. Nope, can't do that. All right, let's try zone defense. Nope, can't do that. I mean, no. Tibbs is trying everything in that game to not get an ass whooping on national television.
Yeah, the Knicks don't have the personnel, or the guys don't play the style that gives the Cavs trouble. I'm not insulting them or anything, but the Cavs, I don't want to say struggle, but they have a harder time with super athletic, super physical teams. You saw the game tonight. It's like Memphis didn't shoot the ball well, didn't play particularly well, but they hung in the game the whole time. And and again, it's like that's why I put it this way: Memphis has the 4th best record in the league. I don't think they have the 4th best talent. I don't know if they have top 10 talent, but just the way they play and everything, gives teams and it gives the Cavs trouble. I mean, we saw it with like Houston. We've seen it with like OKC and Boston. Just these teams that have big wings and are super physical with the Cavs. That's who they have trouble with. The Knicks don't really play that way, especially on the interior. So I don't know. I'm not super worried. I think the Cavs match up with them very well this year.
So you want them to start falling, so that they get in kind of the position of who we're playing, the Magic. The Magic.
No, I don't. I don't believe in like playing those matchup games, like because you're going to have to play good teams in the NBA playoffs, and the further you go, the better the teams are you're going to play. Like I still do think it's important for the Cavs to get the 1 seed because of the home court advantage, and to not have to play, even though I think they match up well with New York, you don't want to have to play New York one round and then Boston the next. That's a gauntlet, right? And so let those 2 teams duke it out against one another, and then the Cavs hopefully play an opponent that they can, handle a little bit better. And but yeah, I'll also say this Cavs team tonight was another example. They can win in so many different ways. I mean, they scored 129 points tonight while shooting under 28% from 3. Like
crazy.
Yeah, just so they just continue to find ways to win, and they shot 68% from free throws, which that's a little concerning that seems to happen a lot, but otherwise, yeah, just really, really really fun game to watch for me, at least, and then really good game to walk out of with a victory. And we talked about this first 10 games out of the All-Star break could determine the end of the season and the seeding. And if the Cavs can go like something like 8-2 and maintain a 6-game lead over Boston, and there's less than 20 games left, that the 1 seed's all but wrapped up. Well, they're now 3-0 coming out of the All-Star break. And so
7-game win streak.
Yeah, really just God, there are 7 games. This is their at least their 3rd 7-game or more winning streak.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
Against good teams, by the way. I mean, it's not like they're like Minnesota, New York, Memphis. We got the Magic tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Tuesday. So we can kind of preview that game. But
sure,
yeah, I mean they're winning against good teams. So yeah, let's get into the Magic. I think really the only person that will be missing is because Wagner's out for the season. They have Jalen Suggs is out, but
he's going to be out. He's been out for probably about a month now, and I haven't seen anything about him even close to coming back. So he's going to be out Tuesday.
So they'll be a little shorthanded. Hopefully we'll have Darius Garland back for this one, but it'll be our first time, right? Yeah, it'll be our first time seeing them with Paolo. So that will be fun to watch.
Yeah, because Paolo Banchero had a very unfortunate injury, missed a couple of months of the season, but traditionally him along with Evan Mobley are 2 of the best big men, young big men in the NBA. And frankly, 2 guys who could be kind of matchup rivals for years to come. Little bit different games where Mobley, as much as his offensive game is evolving this year, he's more of a all-around contributor everywhere. Banchero is just a straight scorer, gets you a straight bucket getter. I really like this Magic team. This Magic team has had such a weird season to where they lose Banchero and somehow actually get better with Franz Wagner playing at an all-star level. Then Franz Wagner also tears an oblique, which I've never heard a basketball player tearing an oblique before, and that apparently both guys in the Magic did. And then somehow they actually continued to win. They get these guys back. You think they're going to end up being a top 4 seed, and they went like 1-9 in the first 10 games with Franz and Banchero in the lineup. And so I don't really know what to make of them. I still think Orlando is a really good kind of or projecting to be a very good team over the next few years, but they've had a very weird season this season.
Yeah, I would say the matchup predictor kind of agrees with you. They have the Cavs at 63.3%, the Magic in Orlando, by the way, 36.7. So they're giving the Cavs a heavy favorite on this.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. And the one big thing about this game against the Magic, I mean, the Cavs have been very good about not letting this happen all year, but they have a really big one against Boston on Friday night. And so got to make sure, the game Friday doesn't matter. Well, I don't know. It matters differently if you lose the game leading into it. So hopefully the Cavs can do what they've done all year, stay focused, take care of business against a team they hopefully should be able to take care of business with, and then get ready for Friday night. Man,
if they can win the Magic game and the Boston game, I mean, this win streak will be set at 9. Mm-hmm. Then you face Portland, Chicago, Miami, Charlotte, Milwaukee, Brooklyn. Yeah. So that's another 6 very winnable games on top of your 9. So that's another 15-game win streak in this season.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's
wild.
Yeah. We shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's just win Tuesday nights and then gear up for Boston Friday.
Absolutely. So with that, I just want to hit again, next Sunday, we're going to be at Southern Tier Brewing doing a live pregame show. Please come out and we'll have live Q&A with you guys. We have door prizes, just a whole bunch of fun stuff. It's a free event. So come out, have a beer, and talk hoops. Thank you to Blue Wire for giving us opportunity to talk about this fantastic team night in and night out. Go subscribe anywhere that you get podcasts. We are out there. Leave a review, leave comments, everything. I mean, we love interacting with you guys. So with that, I'm Skylar Epker. Tim Daniel is out there somewhere. He's Kevin Lynch, and sound us off.
Go Cavs.